Back to J.P. Morosi leading the league with some grand intentions by a couple of superstar players, starting with Francisco Lindor, who perhaps could stick around in Flushing, Queens for the rest of his career. J.P., he's open to that, we understand?
He is, Matt. And before we get into Lindor, I did want to mention one quick note to follow up on Bob's tremendous piece about Joe Morgan. The stat that I love that we looked up during the Dream Bracket days of last year with our own Keith Costas was this. Joe Morgan walked 850 more times than he struck out. 850 more walks than strikeouts in his career. And also, to unify the Joe Morgan story with the Pujols story off the top of the show, Joe Morgan and Albert Pujols, two of only 10 players ever with 1,000 games played with two different franchises. He actually only played about 120 more games for the Reds than he did with Houston. So certainly, maybe you guys can work on the rest of that list as a little trivia question as the show goes along. Only 8 other players, 1,000 games with two franchises.
Wow.
Now that is,
I didn't realize he played that many
to get
games in Houston. That was a shocker.
Right?
All right, now get us to
and
Lindor.
in our mind's eye, he's a Red. 2 more? You want a couple more?
No,
How
to
about
Lindor.
one
He
that
said
almost no one would guess? Oh, to Lindor. I thought
Yeah.
you said you wanted me to get 2 more names. Okay, sorry about that. I will speed past my delving into the
Great job,
trivia
man, with this
to actually
interview.
get to the essence of the question. Yes, exactly. Which is Francisco Lindor said yesterday during a press conference with the Mets at the Mets camp that he is not yet negotiating a long-term extension with the New York Mets. Perhaps he's looking at some of the numbers that Tatis signed for. We'll get more to Tatis a little bit later on. But, of course, as we know, the trade now has happened a while ago, and there was some belief that the Mets would try to really work on an extension for him before spring training began. But according to what Francisco said yesterday, that's not happening yet. So again, stay tuned. It could be a very interesting spring. He seems very much at ease with not quite knowing yet where those numbers will go. No word yet on if he'll have that mandatory halting of any talks at opening day, but certainly it's a unique spring training in many ways. Let's see how this story develops. But again, to those Mets fans who wanted to see the deal in place before he arrived at Port St. Lucie, that has not happened.
He's 5 years older than Fernando Tatis Jr. And in this discussion of, multi-deals, multi-year mega deals, right? Whether it's Trout or Betts or whomever, you take the top 10. The 10 biggest contracts in Major League Baseball right now, and the Padres have the only 2 in Machado and Tatis that don't take the player beyond the age of 35. There's something to be said for that. So if Lindor wants a 10-year deal now, somebody's going to have to understand that between the ages of 35 and 37, or 35 and 39, however long this deal is, you're talking about significantly diminished returns. You got to win now with these things, man. Not every 10-year contract works out. Look at Pujols, man. I mean, one of the greatest players in the history of the game. It did not yield even a World Series appearance for the Yankees.
See, but JP, I want to throw it to you like this. Will the thinking change looking at Trevor Bauer? Front load the money, and then as a player gets to his dwindling years, yeah, you can stick around and play, but we're not paying you like that.
Yes.
But you still got the money. So I don't understand why you don't do that anyway. It's good for both.
Well, that's a fair question, Harold. Of course, one of the key points there is, at least from the standpoint of luxury tax, it's the average annual value that is the calculation. So that's part of that overall conversation in terms of how you structure the deal. But you're right. The conversation does go to how do you structure those last deals so that way it's almost, they would call it like a backdiving deal in hockey. You see it sometimes. That is sort of the same principle here. And to your point earlier, we've talked about Albert a fair amount during the course of the show. Albert still made an all-star team at the age of 36, I believe. And we all know in the game today, there is a dramatic difference between a 36-year-old player and a 35-year-old player, which is what Tatis will be at the end of his deal, and the 40-year-old player. There is a chasm in terms of what to expect there between those two ages. And I do think, Harold, to your point, shorten up the term, front load the deal. That way you're getting the most bang for your buck, if you will, earlier on in that contract.
Yeah, let's talk about Tatis, because yesterday in his press conference announcing the 11-year contract, or the 14-year contract. Sorry, I don't want to jip him money. Was it 11 or 14?
14.
14. 14-year contract. He talked about the franchise and had some nice perspective and some goals that he stated yesterday.
Some lofty goals, Matt, around a franchise that you know very, very well. Here is what Fernando Tatis Jr., looking, as Harold said, very dapper and up to the occasion from a standpoint of his sartorial choices. Here is what Tatis said regarding what he wants the physical legacy of his time in San Diego to look like.
Why not? Just why not go to a statute contract? You know, people are saying, oh, too many years, but I'm just love what I'm seeing. You know what we're gonna do, and I want the statue on one team. I want to be able to stay in one team and build my legacy over here in San Diego.
When you talk about legends, Matt and Harold, the statue contract, I think that's going to be a term that we remember from that press conference for a long, long time to come. That is what he wants out of this. He wants to have his MLB career to be exclusively with one team. Of course, that was the case with the great Mr. Padre, Tony Gwynn. He wants to have that statue out there in the same area as Tony Gwynn, as Trevor Hoffman, the Hall of Famers with the Padres. And of course, Tatis began his pro career with the White Sox, arrives in the James Shields deal. But I think, to your point, Harold, earlier on in the show, this is someone who clearly, by, yes, the way he was attired and the way he has presented himself, wants to become an icon of this game. Bilingual, bicultural. There's a true global nature to what he can do, and I think that's why he's so exciting. I was asked the question a few days ago, are we going to get to the point where the San Diego Padres are a national, international brand in baseball? And I say yes, because if you had asked me 15 years ago, are the Golden State Warriors a global brand? The answer would have been no. But what made them a global brand? Winning and star players. And so the Padres, much like the Mariners during the Griffey years, can make themselves appointment television for kids growing up in New York and all throughout the East Coast to watch those Padres games late at night. And as Justin Turner said, guys, 19 World Series games this year between the Padres and the Dodgers.
I love that line. Good stuff, JP. Thank you.